Yes, sir, we promised you a great deal of tonight.
Andre, the China WrestleMania!
Hulkamania is running wild.
My God, what a run! It's not a world is watching.
You know what I just realized is that I always say at the top of the show that I'm excited to have our guests and I'm excited for the show, and I'm excited for every show, so I probably should just stop saying that. We are going to go 10 years back tonight to Money in the Bank 2012, a year after the Summer of Punk, and we're going to talk to top guy Brad Stanton, right? Shake your head, Brad. Yes? Top guy? Okay, I can never remember. It doesn't matter. I said this last time. Doesn't matter what tier you are. We just want you here. So, we're going to have a good time. I'm going to talk a little bit about Cadbury cream eggs, too. I've got them sitting right here. So, like I always say, away we go. And James is starting with no camera on. So what's up, everyone? Different look and feel tonight. It's a Friday night. The mood is right. Going to have some fun. Show you how it's done. TGIF. Remember that? Do you remember that? You don't remember the TGIF and the
TGIF.
90s? There, thank you. Somebody remembers.
Yeah.
So we are joined tonight by Brad Stanton, top guy, that I've actually wanted to talk to for a very long time. I'm just now getting to the middle of my list of people I've definitely seen all over the Zooms and wanted to talk to. So, Brad, we're going to start with you. How are you tonight?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Of course. You said you live about 15 minutes outside of Philly. So, am I going to assume that you're an Eagles fan?
I am. Eagles, Phillies, Sixers. You got it. Everything out here.
So, first of all, I just want you to know that James Harden can rot in hell for what he did to my Houston Rockets, who are second to worst in the NBA now. And I blame him solely for that because he couldn't get his shit together and get his shit done in Houston, so he had to leave. Or he had to put them in a shitty position. So he's on my shit list, so he plays for the Sixers, so damn him to hell. Eagles, I have to say, I have a soft place in my heart for them. I've been to Lincoln Financial to see the Titans and the Eagles, and because the Titans were so bad, nobody tried to kill me. So that was cool. What in the hell is that?
I had to get a better background.
Is that it says Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, but it's Bam Bam Bigelow in the back. Oh, is it a triple threat? Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know that they had triple threats back then, but hey, come on, don't let me get in the way of your open here. I'm sorry.
Okay, I know. Brad, I'm gonna grill you some more once we start watching MITB. So just be prepared, okay? Oh God,
no problem.
McClanahan, how are you tonight?
I'm fantastic. It's Friday night. I'm hanging out with the regular crew and Brad Stanton. Thank you so much for being here, Brad. And I'm looking forward to grilling you as well. You know, they call me the king of queries around here, so we're going to see if we can make some sense out of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view.
Jesus Christ. By the way, I was talking to a dear close personal friend of mine, Efren, before the show started, and he wanted me to remind everybody that Efren was in the house this night. So just throwing that out there. Cole, how are you, bud? It's been a long time. Too long.
I mean, I'd be a lot better if you were a little bit more enthusiastic about introducing us. I'm a little bummed. Like it should have been Michael McClanahan. How you doing? Not McClanahan. What's going on, bud? Like,
I'm trying to have a Vince McMahon vibe. God
Bring
damn.
the energy. No, I'm doing.
What the hell, man? What's going on?
If you want a Vince McMahon vibe, just put pal after every word.
Okay, pal.
Please don't.
Like,
You're going to turn into Vince Russo, and then there's going to be heat, bro.
like
Oh, Jesus
we're
Christ.
seeing Frank. I mean, I guess this is as exciting as Frank gets. Like, this is Frank at a Titans game, but it's neither.
Oh no.
Frank
no,
at a Titans
no,
game
no,
is
no.
apoplectic.
Yeah.
Well, he's only
First of
Titan
all,
that
you
we're
need to
named.
talk to Mark Nelson, Brandi Wagner, and Michael Amend on what I'm like at a Titans game because they got to see the football fan Frank, and those Niners fans were not too pleased with me. The second half of that game, I told them where to go and how to get there.
Life is good though, Frank. Thanks for asking. We are, geez, what am I? T minus 36 hours from now, and I'll be in Disney World with my kid. So,
You're not going to pay that a ridiculous amount for the Star Wars experience, are you?
no. This trip is 100% for him. As I told my wife, he's 2.5. Lord knows he may not even get on a single ride. We might just sit in the hotel and watch Coco Melon all week. But we're gonna give it a go. It should be a good time. I hate flying. It'll be my first time on a plane since before the pandemic, so that should be exciting.
Nothing to worry about with flying, Mike. I've done it a bunch. It's real easy. You'll be just fine.
Oh yeah, I've flown quite a bit. I still get nervous on planes.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
So that means you don't want to hear about my turbulence experience coming back from Atlanta.
You can tell it all you want.
Jesus
I've
Christ.
been in plenty of turbulent experiences. Here's the kind of flyer I am, Michael McClanahan, and we'll get away from my flying topics. The viewers don't want to hear me talk about this. I actually go to turbulenceforecast.com. That's a legit website. I pay somebody to email me what kind of turbulence I'm going to experience on my flight. This way, if I know what I'm going to experience, man, it can be the
Whoa,
plane ride
there's a
from hell.
website for this shit? Of course there
Oh,
is.
yeah.
What's it called?
Turbulence Forecast.
Yeah, I got to go find this out. Thank you very much.
Turbulence Forecast.
I've never heard of that, but that's actually pretty interesting.
Our lady has arrived, so I'm gonna skip Henry. I'll come back to you. But Brandi, how are you, my dear?
I am very glad the week is over. It's been a long week at work.
Yes, I understand that completely. My week started with the person that's training me, and I'm taking over for telling me that I'm a liar for no reason. No reason. I'm a grown ass man about to be the controller of an international company, but I'm a liar for not remembering something. But anyway, the week needed to be over, Brandi.
Wow.
Absolutely. And my number one girl is right here for us too. Sapphire's joined us.
Sapphire in the house. Henry, my man.
Hi,
how are you?
Sapphire.
I'm mesmerized because I keep staring at Mike Cole because a minute ago he had up Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. We're going further back in time now with Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, and a rip-off Charles Robinson that doesn't even belong in this picture. Screw you, WWE. But I'm good. Fantastic. I'm getting ready to finish up my run in this studio here. The show that we broadcast for next week, Royal Rumble 2000, will be the last time I'm here. I'm moving, and so is the studio.
And then Mr. James, the man behind FFP. How are you?
I am fantastic. As I said at the pre-recording, pre-show, I think this is the first time I've been here since the last time Kolb was here. So that's interesting how that's worked out. Yeah, Phil's not happy about it, and that's okay. We're okay with that.
Phil couldn't be here, so we what do they say in WWE when you can't put the match in the ring, you have to find a better replacement?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
see,
think
we're
football
giving
kind of
Brad,
phrase of
we're
it's
rolling
what we
Brad.
called an audible.
We called it an
No,
audible.
it's the old card subject to change asterisk that used to be on all the promotional cards.
But we're rolling out the red carpet for Brad. So, everybody out there, go to your cock. The peacock. We are going to Money in the Bank. So it is again. Click on WWE. What I typically do is just put Money in the Bank in the search field, and you'll go down to season 3, episode 1, and then it's titled Money in the Bank 2212. But just in case, because we have to deal with this stupid season 3 stuff. And when we're ready, Brad, you will do the countdown. So once everyone's ready, let's let Brad know, and then I'm going to track it. at least track the open, and we're gonna have some fun. Brandi, you good? I know you just got in, so.
Yes, no, I am ready. I actually got my cock up and running before I got into the studio, so I was ready.
Gentlemen, Colby, you ready? You're good, James, Henry? All right. Brad, give us the countdown, brother.
All right. 3, 2, 1, play.
All right, here we go.
Can I get a time check?
Get out. Shut up.
Phil's not
6,
here.
7,
I had
8,
to do
9, 10, 11, 12.
You guys can hear that good?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought Daniel Bryan was the second winner. Excuse me, Bryan Danielson. Oh, no, I was wrong. Second, CM Punk third.
Can we forget this man existed? Okay, good. They skipped over Del Rio. I like it.
It was very quick. But he was the cover. He's on the cover art of this pay-per-view.
Yes, he was.
And he's in one of the world title matches.
Why? Why was he a champion at any time?
I don't understand.
Before even anybody knew he was crazy.
They had high hopes
What?
for him. I've got a little sidebar when we get to his match. Remind me of that.
I've looked at some of his matches before he was unmasked in Mexico, and he really was not that great comparatively with other people who were around at the same time.
Tonight, hanging high above
But didn't he have lineage as well? Wasn't his uncle Mil Mascaroth? So that might have helped.
His uncle
open a
is
few
still
doors.
Mil Mascaroth, but honestly, to me, that doesn't matter. I care about what you put in the ring, and there were so many other people who were much better.
I agree, and I'm not disputing that with you. I'm just saying that sometimes in the business, it's probably who you know, not so much what you know in terms of technical
As
acumen.
apparent by Randy Orton still having a job in 2022. Yeah.
Really, I think Randy Orton, this is some of the best work of his career lately. I think he does a good job.
I'm sorry, he's only the most boring and formulaic person on the planet.
You gotta be willing to go through hell. Who will emerge from the chaos?
We're going to see, is Randy on the card tonight? Because we can have a good discussion about Randy. I think he is.
One step closer to destiny.
I don't think he is.
Thank God.
I'm
you know
going to
what?
say
8
no.
million times he was
Oh, no,
injured.
you know what? I think he's still on his wellness policy suspension at this point.
WWE presents Money in the Bank.
I do like that they've kept that song.
I heard the music and I thought it was time for the cash
I was
course.
just gonna say that's the cash. That's the cash course theme. So, hold on. I'm gonna give me 1 sec. See if this works. You gonna mute me? Okay. So, real quick, why did you choose this event?
All right. So I've been in and out of watching wrestling, like a lot of us, I guess. Maybe somebody stuck through it all these years, but I didn't. Came back in about 3 months probably before this, and when I watched this, I actually think this is the best Money in the Bank, and I actually think this first match, the first Money in the Bank match, which is for the World Heavyweight Championship, might be the best. I think it's that good.
I
This
agree
is
with
cool.
you. That
But real quick, so it's Dolph Ziggler versus Christian versus Cody versus Damian Sandow. I miss him. Santonio Morella, Sin Cara, Tensai. Oh God, Tensai, and Tyson Kidd. I mean, that's a hell of a lineup. And Efren, you were
Who is
right.
Santonio?
Did I say Santonio?
Yes, you did.
Because I'm thinking of Antonio, wondering when he's coming back. Santino Morella. My bad. And yes, Efren, you were right. Sin Cara is on the card. Because I wasn't reading this properly earlier, but so this is
Speaking of
was this the show that
boring.
kind of brought you back for the most part?
It did, and there's also it's very interesting too. Because even looking back on it, I really still enjoy it because some of the match placement on this card is absolutely crazy to me with even the championship matches. and that's something I'm sure we'll get into. Just your championship matches are second and maybe fourth, and
Yeah.
You're
with the
absolutely
names
right.
that they are
Yep.
nowadays,
Well,
I think without the championship,
I-
I think these guys are headlining any pay-per-view anywhere.
I will go on record as saying that with the sole exclusion of the Royal Rumble, when depending on the caliber of talent you have with your top title, the Royal Rumble match should be the main event. It seems very strange to close out a pay-per-view for a non-championship title match.
Okay, then I'm going to jump in here really quick for a second before I even ask my first question because it'll kind of lead into it. But if you remember during this time frame, anybody that was watching, it was very common for CM Punk not to main event the pay-per-view. During this time, like you had WrestleMania 28 that was closed with Rock Cena, Brock Lesnar, John Cena, closed Extreme Rules, Over the Limit, John Cena, John Laurinaitis, John
look, it's
Cena,
dashing
Big Show.
Cody Rhodes.
What'd you say?
It's dashing Cody Rhodes.
Wonder if he'd ever return to that gimmick if he comes back to WWE.
No,
I'm
I
not
don't
coming
know.
back.
I hope not. What, he's not coming back?
It's been
We're not
reported in places today. He's apparently not coming back. Contract negotiations between him and Vince must have fizzled somewhere.
I did see that.
Rumor and
Actually.
innuendo, several reports have come out that the talks have indeed fizzled out. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, but apparently Cody and TK have been back in contact, and there may be an opportunity for him to return to AEW and be part of the newly re-owned or purchased Ring of Honor.
You know
It's
what I
bananas.
think is interesting with Cody's return that nobody's focusing on? If you want him on main roster AEW, he can now challenge for the world title again, and it wouldn't go against that storyline because it said he could.
Well, you didn't
What'd
have
you
to
say?
stop. I was going to hold my thought for a second.
Oh, I was just gonna say because if you remember at Full Gear when he lost to Jericho, it was he could never challenge. Now they could work out because he left and came back. That stipulation's null and void. So it's an interesting way, and I think you have to bring him back as a heel.
I don't think he's going back on proper AEW television at all.
I think
At
he's
least
gonna
not in
be
the near term.
He'll be on the
Exactly.
He'll be part of the ROH package. Would be more quickly.
Right. I think he would be more focused on that ROH invasion of Impact, and then, eventually that will cross over into regular AEW, but definitely not at this point in time when things are still so.
Since we're talking about things AEW, I have an unpopular opinion. This show has a 3-man broadcast booth featuring former 5-time WCW and WWE World Heavyweight Champion Booker T, the King Jerry Lawler, and the biggest piece of trash to come out of Syracuse University since former Jacksonville Jaguars and Buffalo Bills head coach Doug Marrone, Mr. Michael Cole. Vince McMahon should cast him aside and use somebody else. I'll say that here, too. I feel like Booker T and Jerry the King Lawler make for a
That's
much
not
more...
exactly controversial. I mean, just the other day on the Pat McAfee show, Vince was throwing Michael Cole under the bus.
I watched
think
that.
he was joking.
Worst human
I
being
think
on
he
the
was
planet.
joking. I think
He was
loved
absolutely
Michael Cole.
joking. He was
He
joking.
would not be in the position he's in if it wasn't. And this is an unpopular opinion because people aren't going to believe this. Michael Cole's more the voice of my childhood than Jim Ross was because I got started
That's
watching
because you're stupidly
wrestling.
young.
Brad, real quick, are you following AEW?
Yeah, I followed just about everything.
Yeah. Okay. Your thoughts on what are you enjoying more right now, WWE or AEW?
Definitely AEW, but I do think that time's going to run out soon because what do we look more forward to? Do we look forward to the wrestling or do we look forward to the surprises? Which, I mean, we've heard this 100 times. And sooner or later, I think you have to run out of surprises and you just have to, enjoy the wrestling or enjoy the storylines instead of always having something new.
I'll tell you, though, and this is a current topic, but best storytelling I think I've ever seen recently was that MJF promo and the heel turn this past week. Did any of you watch that? With the,
Yes,
just the storytelling there was phenomenal.
Did you see the knot on Punk's head? Did y'all
Yeah.
see that?
Yes, but I want to focus, Brad, on something that you kind of touched on with AEW, and this will be a nice little segue into kind of the question I want to pose for us to discuss and think about throughout the night, because I have kind of a controversial take on the Money in the Bank concept. And when you're talking about AEW and the surprises running out, you can almost use the concept of the law of diminishing returns. And to me, the main event of this pay-per-view, the Raw Money in the Bank, or the Money in the Bank for the WWE Championship, this is a prime example of when I started to lose interest in the Money in the Bank concept, because to me, the main event of this pay-per-view and the winner devalues the initial intent of the Money in the Bank concept. I'd like to get everybody's thoughts on that, and I don't think it's ever truly recovered after that. And I have.
Are you saying that's because of the star power that was in it?
Yes, I think if you look at when Money in the Bank originally got started at WrestleMania 21, it was an elevation. Like the match we're watching right now, Dolph Ziggler, Christian,
Right.
Cody Rhodes, Damian Sandow. I agree with this being a Money in the Bank match because somebody will hopefully get elevated out of this match. Now, we can debate whether or not that actually occurred, but if you've got a Money in the Bank match with, let me just glance here, with John Cena, Big Show, Chris Jericho, Kane, and The Miz, you know what the commonality between all of them is? They've all been world champion before. To me, I get why they did it, and the execution of it, I understand, but I don't think that that's a Money in the Bank match that should have main evented, and I certainly don't think John Cena needed Money in the Bank. And to me, this is when Money in the Bank started to become a prop.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but I also, if you have two of them, that's why I think it's okay. Like you have this, and then you have that. So you have the star power in the main event, and then you have the up and comers here. I understand what you're saying. I also don't like the way that Money in the Bank plays out with how he cashes in the second one, the main event.
I
don't
agree.
enjoy that. It's all about the element of surprise, and I don't know if I'm supposed to give away who wins, but
Go for it.
but John Cena basically wins, and then he just schedules a match. That's no fun. That's no fun at all.
I agree.
We want to see someone cash in. We want to see that, and Dolph Ziggler, who he does it for 9 months.
Yeah,
so that's why I think
got
it's
one.
okay.
And that
It
pop
worked
after
once,
WrestleMania was legendary. Go ahead, Henry.
I want to point out two things before we keep going. The first Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 21 featured such stars as Christian, Chris Jericho, Kane, Shelton Benjamin, Edge, and the late Chris Benoit. I find it hard to argue because at least three of those six people were main event talent at WrestleMania 21. Two, and most importantly, I noticed it with the beginning of the match. This pay-per-view happens just about a year after the end of the first brand split. Why are the suitcases still red and blue? Because the titles aren't show specific anymore.
Oof.
That's actually a good question.
Well,
I hadn't even thought of that, but I like that question. That's a really good attention to detail.
I think the only reason to have your star power in the main event is if you don't think your world champions can perform. Now, at this show, the defending champions for the World Heavyweight title and the WWE Championship, respectively, are Sheamus and CM Punk. Not to take anything away from either one of them.
Did you see that botch? Holy shit.
Yeah, seriously. Botchamania right there.
Was it Sin Cara? He was notorious for those.
Not to take anything away from him, but
in the first Money in the Bank, I think the star power made sense because it was a new concept and you're going
I agree.
for it.
And it was WrestleMania.
And I would argue that there's one call your shot that worked out really well, and that was One Night Stand.
Yep, RVD. Because
that was the only call your shot that I was a fan of. Because even though you kind of knew he was going to win, it was they replayed the bot.
Well, and James, I'll circle back to your point. But Henry, do you want to finish your comment that you were saying?
Go ahead.
Let's be honest with ourselves. The biggest piece of star power on this whole pay-per-view isn't your WWE champion CM Punk. It is not your World Heavyweight champion Sheamus. It's certainly not anybody in this opening match. Your biggest star power in the company in 2012 and on this pay-per-view, unfortunately, is 16-time heavyweight champion John Cena, who I would argue is the most charismatic person to ever bestow themselves upon WWE since maybe and only The Rock.
Shawn Michaels asked. Shawn Michaels.
I'm not giving you that.
Okay.
No, and I actually am going to agree with Henry here. Cena's run was much
You're
longer
fired!
than Cena's run was much longer than Shawn Michaels.
Oh, James, he had to step away for a second. Sorry. Real quick before keep getting deeper because we could keep talking about this. Henry, you want to queue up Map It for everyone?
I don't believe I'm going to say this, but since this is Money in the Bank, I think it's more appropriate to start with the cash course.
Okay, that works for me.
All right, cash course it is.
Money, 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 money.
Money. The dollars and cents, what we have in the bank. Tonight we are going to look at the cash course for Money in the Bank, and the way we're going to do that is I'm going to focus on something I've been doing the past few weeks that I've really enjoyed, which is looking at a single isolated driver, which is the pay-per-view price, the buy rate, and ultimately the revenue that was generated from the pay-per-view. Now, there are a few qualifiers that I'll mention, but what we're going to do first is look at, this was the third Money in the Bank pay-per-view event. So we're going to look at its performance against the other two. Money in the Bank 2012 had a total of 188,000 buys, and the price was approximately $45. I believe it was $44.95, but I rounded again for easy math. Now, I do want to mention, before I go into my dollar figures here, they're not going to be exact, but they're a good estimate, and the reason for that, the website that we quote our prices from mentioned that they look specifically at the standard definition price. Now, during this time period, since 2008, you could also purchase pay-per-views in HD. So you need to factor in that a certain percentage of the buys were probably HD, but it won't have a material impact on the discussion we're trying to have. So I'm going to focus on that standard driver of $45 a pay-per-view. So Money in the Bank 2012 had 188,000 buys at $45, which was approximately $8.5 million. Let's turn the clock back 1 year and look at Money in the Bank 2011. Arguably one of the best pay-per-views in the recent era, and that had approximately 195,000 buys, again $45, for approximately $8.8 million. When we look at that, that's a decrease of 7,000 buys or a decrease of $315,000 in pay-per-view revenue. Now, let's compare Money in the Bank 2012 back 2 years to when the concept originated in 2010. At that point, the 2010 version had 162,000 buys at $45 for about $7.3 million. That was actually showing that 2012 had an increase in buy rate compared to 2010, and that increase would be approximately an additional 26,000 buys, which generated an additional approximately $1.2 million of revenue. Now, one thing I want to do, and we'll transition to Map It after this, is this pay-per-view took place in Phoenix, Arizona. At the time of the event, the venue was known as the U.S. Airways Center. Henry will give you the logistics on the venue now and on other events that occurred there, but I do want to mention one because it has a very special meaning to me. Cyber Sunday 2008 took place at the U.S. Airways Center, as it was known then. Again, now it's under a different name, and that was the first WWE pay-per-view that I ever ordered. So I wanted to give that a special shout out by looking at its numbers and running a separate mini cash course. So we said Money in the Bank 2012 had 188,000 buys at approximately $45. And then Cyber Sunday had approximately 153,000, again at approximately $45. So Cyber Sunday generated $6.9 million of revenue compared to the $8.5 million generated by Money in the Bank 2012. That's an increase of 35,000 buys and approximately $1.6 million. I've thrown around a lot of dollars, a lot of cents, a ton of figures, but the main focus here should just be that the concept was still in its infancy, and you can see that there clearly was an interest in the pay-per-view market. So I think we've dissected the dollars and cents for Money in the Bank, and that's your cash course.
All right. Henry, you ready for some Map It?
Bring it on.
Yo ho ho!
Hey!
Blow me down!
Na 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 na.
332 Kitty Hawk, USS Kitty Hawk. This is Namcom Space Doctor Roger, over.
As Money Mike so eloquently mentioned just a few moments ago, this is the third edition of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. This is the first Money in the Bank pay-per-view since the end of the WWE brand split the previous year at SummerSlam 2011. This edition of Money in the Bank comes to us from what is now called the Footprint Center. I don't know where that name comes from. I'm not sure what sponsors it. So I'm just going to call it the U.S. Airways Arena in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. This show featured a live attendance of about 9,000 people, and as Money Mike said a second ago, featured a pay-per-view buy rate of about 188,000, which for its time isn't a bad number. It's not really a good number, I don't think. I don't really know. This is only the third ever WWE pay-per-view to take place in this venue. The first was the 2003 edition of SummerSlam. The second, as Mike mentioned, was Cyber Sunday 2008. This venue would host a fourth pay-per-view about 6 months later with the 2013 edition of the Royal Rumble. The Footprint Center is the home of the NBA's Phoenix Suns, who very recently competed for the NBA championship within the last 12 months, losing 4-2 to the Milwaukee Bucks in last year's NBA Finals. Or would it be this year's NBA Final? I really don't know how the hell that works.
Yeah, I think technically it was the 2020-21 season, so last year is perfectly fine.
That works. The U.S. Airways Arena is located in close proximity to several of the other major league venues for the other three major sports teams. The Arizona Coyotes play out of this building. They're located not that far from, I must have written it down somewhere here, Chase Field, the home of the Arizona Diamondbacks, who in 2001 set a major league record for becoming the fastest franchise from founding to its first World Series win to win the game, taking down the New York Yankees 4-3 to end the 2001 season. What the hell is Vicky Guerrero doing in this match?
I'd like to say fuck the Yankees.
Thank you. Okay, she got off of the ladder.
She should be ejected from ringside. Managers don't belong in this match. The city of Phoenix, one of its suburbs is Glendale, Arizona, which is the home of the Arizona Cardinals, who began their life way the hell back in 1920 with the founding of the American Professional Football Association as the Chicago Cardinals. They're one of only three teams that actively play in the NFL now that existed in 1920, the other two being the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
Was that who said that?
Me.
Oh, for a second.
Bears.
That's better. In this same month, there'd be two other major wrestling events from research I conducted. WWE would host a Super SmackDown Live, the Great American Bash in Corpus Christi, Texas on July 3rd. This would be the first time since 2009 that title had been used for an event. And this is the first time going back all the way to 1986 with the very first edition of the Great American Bash from then Jim Crockett Promotions to actually air not as a pay-per-view event, but on television, and featured a main event match. I don't think I actually wrote down what the main event match was because the idea of taking such a great pay-per-view and turning it into a TV show bothered me. In the same month, we would also see an input from Total Nonstop Action, now called Impact Wrestling, its Destination X pay-per-view, which would take place from fabulous Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, in front of a crowd of 1,100 people. Austin Aries would defeat Bobby Roode in the main event of that pay-per-view for the TNA World's Heavyweight Championship. I don't know how many buys it did, because between 1999 with Mayhem, produced by World Championship Wrestling, to last year's All-In pay-per-view, which took place in September from the Hoffman Estates in Illinois, no other non-WWE pay-per-view event managed to amass more than 200,000 buys. And since TNA was never very good at that anyway, I didn't think it a relevant number. And that's my map-it.
Well, damn, that was informative. Wow. I just wanted to throw something out there to everybody. You mentioned the 2001 World Series, and there was a gentleman on that team who helped the Arizona Diamondbacks win their first World Series, that helped the 2004 Boston Red Sox dispel that 86-year curse, and we're talking about Mr. Curt Schilling, and I just wanted Curt Schilling to know that I love you, brother.
Mr. Bloody Sock himself, right?
Yep, Mr. Bloody Sock himself.
Please tell me that's not the hill you're going to die on.
Philadelphia Philly.
Oh,
Pete Rose was the greatest baseball player ever, and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
see, but that's a hill I would accept you dying on. Giving a shout out to Curt Schilling, who's a terrible human being. Get out of here.
I'm sorry. I guess it'd be different if
He was
Chris
a great
Benoit was on
pitcher.
the 2004 Red Sox, but
Listen, a great pitcher. No doubt. I'm not saying he's a terrible pitcher. He's a terrible human being.
Yeah, I think there's a correlation there with, like, so I'm a Cubs fan, obviously. Ryan Dempster was a Cub, was a Boston Red Sox as well, won a World Series with the Red Sox. Ryan Dempster, the human being, I cannot stand, mainly for his political stance, and we don't need to get into that. This is not what you come to TGT for. But the best story I can think of that makes me respect Dempster as a baseball player is after they won the World Series in Boston that night, the Red Sox went out and partied, and he played catch with his kid in Fenway Park until 2 a.m.
Yep.
He didn't go out and party with anybody. He played catch with his kid.
By the way, you forgot the most important person in the 2001 World Series.
Who's that?
Young Kim.
That's right. He was
Isn't
a
he the
Boston Red
kicker
Sox.
now for the Atlanta Falcons?
Was that a name, or was that what Frank says when he climaxes?
Oh my God, Brad. Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
Young Kim, who, by the way, who was the more, if you had said in a million years, who was the more stable pitcher in the 2001 playoff series, Mariano Rivera, Young Kim? No one would have said Young Kim, but here we are.
I always thought
Sounds like you're saying Pyongyang Kim, which makes me wonder why Kim Jong-il was the pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
And there you have it.
Wow. I mean, we're talking over a fucking great match.
It was.
Yeah, this was
Was it really?
Match.
Yeah, Dolph Ziggler won.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes,
all right.
it was.
What's everyone's time code? What the fuck?
27:57.
27:58.
28:05.
I just pushed myself forward 10 seconds. What the fuck?
Yeah, James and I are in the same exact time code.
So I want to focus back on what Brad was kind of saying about, and I love that this is one of your favorite pay-per-views, because this was my era of wrestling when I was watching every day, every week. I mean, I've tried to do that forever, but to be honest with you, as I've gotten older, gotten busier, I DVR Raw, watch it quickly. I watch a lot of the shows that are 2 and 3 hours. I can watch them in an hour in kind of a Cliff Notes version. But at this time, I was watching everything. So who, at this point, were some of your favorites, Brad?
I mean, right now, Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah,
I know he's never been the guy. Well, he has and he hasn't, but I don't think anybody. His in ring is just incredible. But my favorite wrestler, and still is Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, I agree. And Brian Danielson now, the work he's doing in AEW right now, I think is some of my favorite work of his career, because I think it's the most organic and the most natural version of him. Like, I love him as a heel. Like, you compare this to when he was doing the Planet Champion gimmick. I just love what he's doing now with every match having a different submission hold. And I think you could argue that he is the best technical wrestler currently. To me, he is this generation's Bret Hart.
Why is there a disco ball hanging above the ring?
Why not?
Oh, the Funkadactyls, are they a part of this?
Ah, they were the best.
Funky's
I
on a
love what they did
roll.
with Brodus Clay. That was a fun gimmick.
They might have been.
I see that, and the only question I ask myself is, when's Disco Inferno showing up with his big gold record?
I'm trying to see. I don't see him on the card, but maybe it was a dark match or something.
But Henry, the thing I want to focus on what you said was, and I kind of had mentioned it, John Cena at this time is main eventing the pay-per-views. And so what does everyone think of the concept? I know we got Henry's take, but maybe let's go around the room. What are your thoughts on the championship should go on last? Because we've seen that, and AEW is pretty good about that, because to be honest with you, at All Out, you could have made a case, oh, the CM Punk return should go on last. But what are your thoughts on the concept of the championship match needs to close the show? And let's start with our guest, Brad.
All right. So, there's a very, very specific pay-per-view and we all know about it. It was Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. And that did not go on last. And because of that, I thought the main event suffered. I think more often than not, the main event should be last. But if you have so much star power that it's going to overshadow it either way, then it shouldn't. In this case, what's crazy about this, though, in this particular pay-per-view to me, is that it's Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk. Maybe they didn't have the star level at the time, but now I really believe that they could main event a pay-per-view and not have any championships over the champion.
Brad, I want to interject for 1 second because I just thought of something, and it's something that we're thinking of. And I want to kind of maybe isolate that match, if you guys don't mind. Because I want to ask you this question. Does the venue impact what goes on last and the city? Because let's say they held this pay-per-view, the next year would be held in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at the Wells Fargo Center. If you go to Philadelphia with a CM Punk, Daniel Bryan WWE Championship main event, do you think you can have that go on last there versus in Phoenix, or if you go to a Chicago? And what I'm trying to isolate is areas that were Ring of Honor strongholds, where these guys had an established following prior to even coming to WWE. Do you think that impacts it at all, or do you think that venue doesn't play a role?
I don't know if they always play to the venue. It's not a bad idea. I don't know if they always think that way, or maybe they should. Yes, I definitely think that in Philadelphia, they have their favorites. They root for who they want to root for, and you should give them what we've seen. Royals do well there, so that in certain situations that the venue should matter.
Cool, thank you, Mike Cole. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that there's always going to be moments where your world title storyline isn't going to be the best storyline that you have going on, right? And I'm always up for the best storyline going on last, or the most anticipated match going on last. I mean, a few years ago, right? It's been more than a few years ago now. It feels like everything was a few years ago to me. When we had, wasn't it Lesnar Rollins open WrestleMania? That was a great way to open Mania. Great way to open Mania. And Lesnar was arguably one of the biggest people on that card. Open it. I think it was great. So,
and if you remember, the one and only Queen, Miss Charlotte Flair, was in the main event of that WrestleMania.
How about this? Every time he brings up Charlotte Flair, I'm going to pop my HBK photo up. How about that?
Seriously.
Deal.
If you mention
I'm not
Charlotte
doing that
Flair
today.
again, we're throwing you out.
Yeah. So I'm gonna interject and answer my question. I am old school that I believe that the championship match should be last. That saying WrestleMania 8, which is the inspiration for our new Open. I believe Randy and Rick should have been the last match on the show. I believe
should have been the only match on that show.
Well, yeah, true that. Well, no, honestly, Shawn and El Matador was a good match, but
Sid Hogan wasn't.
But that was wasn't that the opening match?
That was the opening match, but you got Brett and Piper on that show too.
Oh, that's true.
That was good. There's some of the rest of it was a clusterfuck of stuff, but I mean, can you imagine if there was another main event to WrestleMania 5 than Hogan and Savage? But that was a good story too.
Correct.
I just think that, I mean, honestly, the closing match of this show, because I really think that the world title at this point in time was secondary to the WWE Championship. That's just how I feel about it. I could be completely wrong and off base, but so I think Punk and Bryan should have closed this show out, regardless. You're the champion. That's what should be the main event. And Brad, I agree with you. I mean, maybe they should have had Hogan Rock for the belt or something, because I mean, it probably should have been the main event, but they were sticking to their lores that WrestleMania should end with a championship match.
Frank, can I challenge your position 1 second? Because I want to bring up one match that I wanted
Which
to see.
position, doggy style or missionary?
Pruning the hibiscus.
I don't know if do you possess the agility for that?
Doggy style? No, I'm gonna lay there and get it. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. And then we'll go to Henry because I see you have your hand up. But I wanted to ask you. So you're saying that the championship match should always close. Do you remember WrestleMania 25 with one of your favorite wrestlers?
Oh yeah,
Shawn Michaels?
yeah.
And they had the match with the Undertaker that was a show stealer on that night. Do you still think the title matches should have gone on after, or like I think Brad might have even said it? It felt like if they were less than after that match. Would you have had Undertaker and Shawn main event that Mania as well?
Honestly, no. No,
really. See that?
I really believe. No, I mean, if Shawn ain't got the belt, he shouldn't be the main event. This is just my honest opinion, guys. I mean, I get why. I mean, wasn't the next year the retirement match was last too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or no?
No, it wasn't last.
Yes.
No.
Yes, it was. The retirement match was last.
And then wasn't Roman Reigns and Undertaker last?
That was the one I was going to call out.
At 33, it was.
I mean, that was supposed to be Undertaker's last match ever, right? And that was the goal.
It didn't happen.
But it didn't happen.
Frank, I hope you know I respect and really like your insight. I just like to play devil's advocate, and I like to challenge you.
That's why there's so many of us on this show. We're not always going to agree and have the same opinions. I started watching wrestling in 1988, and the WWF Championship was the last match on the card, no matter what, unless it was Survivor Series. So like, or I mean, the Royal Rumble where the championships weren't. I mean, for those early Royal Rumbles, the championship was never defended. But I think the 1991 Survivor Series, I thought Hogan and Taker should have ended it, and it didn't. So
that match, though, at least told a story that ended up with Flair being able to finally back up his claim that he was the real world's heavyweight champion at the Royal Rumble the next year. I kind of agree with the idea that if your main event title match tells a compelling story, but it's just not compelling enough to be the final match, that maybe it shouldn't go on last.
No, I
use as my example CM Punk and Daniel Bryan going at each other in this match for the the WWE Championship.
We're not
and
there
then
yet.
Next year's Money in the Bank, they're in the main event match. However, that main event match isn't for either the World Heavyweight or the WWE title. Randy Orton will beat Christian, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Sheamus, and a surprising name, Rob Van Dam, for a Money in the Bank WWE Championship contract. But they're in the main event.
And that's another reason I dislike the money. I think the equity and Money in the Bank's going down because Randy Orton wins it. I get it as a storytelling device, but I don't like it.
I mean, going back to WrestleMania 8, I could make the argument that neither Sid and Hogan or Flair and Savage deserve to be the main event. That main event was and should have been Hogan and Flair.
Oh, yeah, we can go around.
Bash
about
the Beach
that.
94 proved that. That match drew money. It drew eyeballs. Vince McMahon should have done first, and he didn't.
So let's bring this to modern day for a quick second, and let's ask a question, because as we're taping this, and this will air later, but as we're taping it, AEW Revolution is this weekend. I want to do something we don't normally do, and I want to talk about really, really current product. So
man, we're just going to take all of Phil's thunder tonight, aren't we?
Who's Phil?
What match?
He's not here.
What's a Phil?
Phil sucks. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
No, I believe it's Kenny Omega socks. Oh, no, you don't own that anymore, do you?
No, I think it expired finally.
Okay, so my question was, so we have Revolution coming up this weekend, and we all know the main event will most likely be Adam Page versus Adam Cole for the AEW World Title.
Right.
In my opinion, and we can just do a quick show of hands on this one, how many of you think that the dog collar match should be the main event? To
God,
me,
no.
that's the most interesting storyline AEW has going on right now. Does
And
anybody
the
else agree
crowd
with me?
goes dead.
No, I don't. Because AEW, when it comes to men's championships, they have 2 singles titles.
Yep.
So that you got to showcase that AEW championship at the end of the show. I mean, there was when we were at All Out, like there was a lot of hype around a lot of matches, but it ended with Christian versus Kenny Omega. I mean, look what happened. I mean, Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson showed up, but still, that your title has gotta be the forefront of your show. And then, I mean,
using
Revolution.
All Out,
What did you say? Go ahead.
using All Out as your example, because CM Punk's just come back to wrestling. If that show ends with his match instead, I don't know personally that it takes anything away from it. If I'm being completely honest, because his coming back to wrestling after being gone for so long, honestly, to me, to that specific pay-per-view, was a much more compelling story than anything else that EW had going on.
I agree.
I'm not disappointed that that's not how they ended it, but
no, I get it. I get what everybody's saying. I really do. I did want to, Brad. I wanted to ask you. You said this show was kind of you'd gotten back into it 3 months prior. You being from Philly or outside of Philly, did you ever have a chance to experience ECW?
I'm not actually from here, so no, and that's disappointing.
Okay.
So I moved here in 2001 when it was kind of over.
Yeah,
and I go now down to the ECW arena. I'm actually going to Impact in March, middle of March.
That's awesome. Okay,
and then
that's
the Battleground
really cool.
show the week after. So I'm going 2 weeks in a row, going to the Icons of Wrestling and everything. So I'm experiencing it now in a different way. For sure.
Yeah, next weekend I'm going to Big Time Wrestling to see the reformation of the Hardy Boys.
And Mr. 20,000, Anthony Pyres, is going with you, isn't he?
Yeah, and Adam Arpin's going to be going with us too. So that's really. I mean, I got a wrestling show a month. I've got Big Time this month. Next month is AEW in Boston, and then we'll be there for that. And then May is Backlash in Providence. So.
And I think that's the cool.
Must be nice to live in the big city with all these big wrestling shows.
That's right, baby.
Well,
it is.
I think that's the cool thing is how we're talking about not only going to shows, but we're going with people that we've met through ad-free shows, which kind of segues me to my next question. Brad, how did you become involved with ad-free shows, and what are your thoughts on being a top guy for ad-free shows? And just talk a little bit about your experience. Again, we're not a shill for them. We just want to get to know you and your personal experience.
Cool. Wait a minute, we're not?
No,
we don't show for them, but we're inspired by them, and TJ created us for the sole purpose of getting to know everybody at AFS. So, I mean, we're a spawn of theirs, right?
So I honestly, ad-free shows. It was before ad-free shows. This was I started listening to podcasts just because I was out of my mind bored because the pandemic started, and I found something to wrestle with. Listened to it, and I said, well, I was I put up 11 birdhouses in my yard. I was so bored. So then I said, you know what? I've always liked Jim Ross. Let me just see what he's doing in podcasting. So I Googled him, or I put him in, and then I'm like, wait a minute. This is the same guy that's talking to Bruce Pritchard. And then that's what happened. So then by Christmas, I said to my wife, I said, you know what I want for Christmas this year? I said, how about ad-free shows? She's like, what's that? I'm like, listen, I know this sounds ridiculous, but yeah, it's this network, these, and I'm not expecting you to do any kind of top guy tier or anything like that. Just I was a toot level. So she said, okay, I guess that's what you want. And then by March, when I found out Thunder Rosa was on, I decided to go to my push. And then by June, I was top guy.
So I have a So I have a similar story to you, Brad, because I listened to the podcast because WWE Network had to show something else to wrestle in 2018, and that was I just remember listening to it, and I liked the story, and I listened to them, and I'll tell a very Cliff Notes version, but I started listening to those around 2018, which is also the same time I graduated my master's and started a new job. And during that time period, I'm one of those people, whenever I start something new, there's always a little bit of an adjustment period. So for me, those podcasts were my constant. I would listen to them every day, and it was just something that I kind of did. And then when ad-free shows started, I'm not somebody that adapts to everything early. So I kind of thought, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll do that someday. And I think it was when they announced the Jim Ross Plane Ride from Hell, the bonus episodes. And I'm like, you know what? I'll take a look at this and I'll see. And it was, I looked, I'm like, $99 a month. Not paying that. Probably never will. I'll do the toot level. And then I got involved, ironically, Brad, asking questions through the Ask Conrads just in the comments section. And I watched one of the Zooms and I thought, oh, this looks kind of fun. And I started using Zoom at work. And I'm like, I think I can do this. So I was on my push for one day in November. And I felt so good after that Zoom that I messaged Evan. I said, I'm upgrading immediately. Thank you so much. And I've never looked back since, and it's one of the best decisions I've made. But I just had to share that because your story is very, very similar to mine. And do you have a favorite podcast? I know you started with Bruce, but I was curious who your favorite is now.
Right now, what my favorite one actually was the Chris Hero one. And then
I liked that too. It was so different. I liked it too. There were only a few episodes, but he had a neat perspective. And I loved when he would talk about NXT developmental. I thought he had such a unique perspective on that.
But as far as the one I look forward to the most right now, I don't because I actually listen to all of them, and they're all better. One beats one every week as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's a little disappointing right now with something to wrestle that he's not around as much, but I think they all do a really good job. I enjoy all of it for what it is, for what they are.
I think I'm gonna be honest, when he announced he was going back to WWE and they're like, oh, the podcast, so we're still doing it. I knew there was going to come a point in time where it was going to fizzle down, and something to wrestle is still something to wrestle with. Was at the time was my go-to, but I've kind of shifted over to Bischoff. But I am not a TNA fan. I never have been. So when they've been very TNA heavy on certain sides of it. I know Eric and Jeff have been doing a lot of TNA stuff. Jim gets a little bit too crotchety for me. So if I get annoyed with him, I just will stop listening for a couple of weeks. And then, so what I've been doing is just shifting by topic. Jeff Jarrett's, I love Jeff Jarrett's podcast, but again, he's talking about TNA. I don't know what he's talking about. The only TNA episode I ever listened to, can any of you guess which one it was?
The one
Tennessee Titans save TNA.
You're damn right.
My world.
You're darn skippy. The Tennessee Titans save TNA. That was the only TNA episode I ever listened to. Or actually, I
love TNA, so I love TNA. So
I get that. It's to each its own, right? I don't know much about ROH. So when Tony Khan comes out and goes, I bought ROH, I'm looking around going, who gives a shit? Like, I didn't know who Brody King was when he showed up. Who gives a shit? I don't care. I mean, I like him now. I think he's a badass.
That's because you're not a smart Mark. Come on.
Well, I have other things going on in my life, I've got a kid, I'm working on my master's degree, and I have a new job. I ain't got fucking time to be a smart Mark.
It is worth noting that we've covered Ring of Honor on this show before.
Was I a part of it?
Yeah, the episode that we did for Antonio. One of the Eddie Guerrero matches was actually from the very first Ring of Honor show.
Okay. I don't remember. I'm not putting it down.
Well,
I'm not
putting it Eddie down. Guerrero, who's not famous for ROH.
I'm just saying I'm not putting it down. It's just I was a WWF, WCW guy, and the I had a hard time with the Brad. How did you do with the WWE product during the pandemic? Did you still enjoy it?
I feel like it was almost a job, and it got better, of course, when they had the Thunderdome. Better, not great, but better. But I still stayed with it. But it was just, I don't know. It's just, it almost felt like a job, and it was tough.
See, I used to do what Michael did, right? Where he would he would fast forward through commercials or fast forward through a stupid match or, like get the Cliff Notes version. But I guess I took my like every week watching show break during the pandemic because it was hard to watch. I still watch the pay-per-views. But I will say some of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen were during the pandemic. I mean, first of all, am I supposed to believe that Rey Mysterio's eye was gouged out and it made Seth Rollins ill? Am I supposed to believe that the Fiend was really set on fire? And I'm sorry, a Money in the Bank in the fucking corporate tower? Are you fucking
I
kidding
love
me?
that. Don't you say a bad thing about
the
that.
cinematic,
I love
the
that. That was the
cinematic
best
match.
Money in the Bank.
No, the best. No, it wasn't. Okay.
Yes, it was.
Otis won it and he went nowhere. Becky fucking Lynch gave up her title the next night. And the only thing that was funny about that was when Brian and whoever the hell else it was went into Vince McMahon's office. It was the only thing I found humorous out of that.
No.
So I want just to chime in on that.
The toilet wasn't funny. That was
okay. That was too.
There was definitely some funny parts to it. Here's what did it in for me during the pandemic era with everything that they did. Right, that Money in the Bank happened. The next night, Becky Lynch gives her title to Asuka.
Mm-hmm.
Did everybody here watch that?
Yeah, I did.
I did.
Yeah.
Asuka started like her little jumping around and celebrating thing that she went on for like 10 minutes.
I remember that.
Like hours, and I was like, "This is terrible." And I just turned it off. I just was done. I'm walking away, and then I did what Michael and Frank talked about. Is became a fast forward thing. Like, hey, I got 25 minutes before the kids got to go down. Fast forward. Okay, watch this little piece. Fast forward. Okay, I'm done. Like,
I'd watch the promos. That was really what I would.
I
do.
think the Thunderdome is one of the most significant eras in wrestling, and I think we're going to look back on it for one reason: Roman Reigns. We don't have the pandemic. We don't have Thunderdome era. I don't think we get the Roman Reigns that we have now. That, to me, he is the most successful star, homegrown talent star that WWE has created, and I'm finally starting to respond to Roman Reigns because of that pandemic era. Because if we don't have the pandemic era, the WrestleMania 36 main event is Goldberg versus babyface Roman Reigns, and we get a babyface title run. I don't know if we get this heel turn. So for me, that's a benefit of the pandemic.
Okay. I'm not saying there wasn't any benefits. I'm not saying there wasn't. But cinematic matches can kiss my fat ass.
See, we've been talking for more than an hour.
Boneyard was creative.
About
Boneyard
how Phil
match
Jackson's not here, and I'd swear he's made his way to Bradford, Pennsylvania, because that is the most garbage take I've ever heard in my life.
What I said?
No, what he said.
What take was garbage
About heel Roman Reigns.
We don't get it if there's no pandemic.
I disagree. I feel like it would have happened sooner or later, and we lost our guest.
That's fine. Keep going. I know there's been some internet issues.
Okay.
Fine.
I feel,
but I
in
don't
all
think
honesty, that we would have eventually ended up with Roman Reigns because Roman Reigns fits the Vince McMahon mold.
I agree.
I'll explain
but do you think that it? Okay, go ahead.
I think, honestly, he fits that mold like Sid Vicious. He fits that mold like Diesel, Kevin Nash, whatever the hell you want to call him. He fits the mold of heel Triple H. He fits the mold of NWO, WCW, Hulk Hogan. Not the crappy NWO part from 2002 where he wrestles The Rock and all of a sudden he's a babyface again. That aspect of the WrestleMania 18 was just weird. I think that Roman Reigns fits that heel character that Vince McMahon lusts after much more so than anybody else on the current roster, with the sole exception of Brock Lesnar. And I'll be honest, I like the fact that Brock Lesnar's a babyface because it makes Paul Heyman more interesting.
I agree.
I think we would have eventually gotten to this pandemic or no pandemic, but I am going to fondly look back at the pandemic era of WWE so that I can warmly remind myself that 2000 WCW was not the worst wrestling ever created, and that while I won't call him a genius because that insults the word genius, Vince Russo wasn't all that bad when compared to pandemic era WWE.
So, Henry, let me ask you something.
Go ahead.
I agree with you that that this heel Roman works for Vince, but why do you think he didn't pull the trigger on it sooner?
I'll be honest, after WCW finally was sold about 2005, 2006, I fell out of wrestling. I came back to it because of WrestleMania 35 with the winner-take-all women's event. So I don't know all that much about Roman Reigns.
Okay.
I feel like, though, the best answer that I can give you with the product that I've seen, I don't think he pulled the trigger on it sooner because I don't think at first Vince McMahon knew what he had because the audience wasn't giving him the information he needed.
Oh, wait, hang on a second. Brad, did you go to the Royal Rumble in Philly?
I went to the 2006, the one where Shinsuke Nakamura won.
Okay.
So
So
I
not the one-
didn't
not-
go the year that Roman got booed out of the building.
Yeah, so that's why I said, hang on a second, Henry. The audience at the Royal Rumble that that The Rock showed up for. And
I was
still
there.
You were not, were you?
I swear to God, my dad and I went there because that was wasn't that because then we ended up at
2015,
WrestleMania
right?
after that.
2015, right? Was that 2015?
It was the year before.
Yeah, that was 2015.
2015,
Yeah, so-
2014. Yeah, it was right around that area.
The audience was telling Vince then, we don't like this guy. And he continued to push it. Sort of like Cena. Like, I got so fucking tired of John Cena. So tired of him. I'm tired of him now. I could have given 2 fucks if he was at SummerSlam. I don't watch any of the fucking movies he's in, except for Bumblebee, because, well, that Haley Seinfeld chick is hot. And I just... Oh, you know what? What was the Cock Blockers? He was pretty funny in that.
Yeah.
Blockers. It was just called Blockers.
But there was a crow, or not a crow.
No, it's called Cock Blockers. I'm sorry. It was originally called Cock Blockers, but they couldn't release that, so they put a cock and then blockers, right? You know what it is. Breadsticks for life, bitch. So really quick, I want this match we're watching is probably one of the best Sheamus matches I've ever seen. But I wanted to share a story with everybody. So, did you know that there's another aisle besides the dairy aisle you can get eggs in?
Oh God, I'm afraid where this is
Did you
going.
know you can now find a dozen eggs in the candy section?
Oh, thank God. I thought we were going somewhere we'd have to edit. Thank God. That's.
I wanted to tell everybody I love these things. So during Easter, I buy these things. I love them so much that I fell asleep eating one last night and rolled all over it in my sleep, and then woke up wondering. I woke up wondering because if you know anything about Cadbury eggs, they have a soft white fondant center. I thought I had a wet dream.
Oh.
My bed was
Frank.
That's the one that should be used.
True or false, Frank? True or false?
What?
Your mom was not phased when you asked her to wash your sheets for you.
Oh boy.
Oh, just shut up, Mike.
Frank, now that we've gone
See,
to
the highlight is I know your mom did your laundry just now.
No, I do my own laundry. But to be perfectly, I did my own laundry. I'm just saying. I figured that was, while it's kind of a vile story, I figured I'd share it with you all.
So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I think it's time to move to our semi-main event for the WWE title to a 1 hour. 1 hour, 27 minutes, 13 seconds. It's the match between. Jesus Christ, I forgot it. I'm looking at my own format. And it's like I've forgotten how to talk.
Bryan,
Thank you for the WWE title.
So 1 hour. You said 1 hour 27:13.
Yes, 127:13.
Starts with them in the ring, right?
Right.
Yes.
I think.
No, it does.
All right.
You're right.
So while everybody's adjusting there, I'm gonna throw a complete curveball on because I agree with Frank that the previous question that we had with championship should be on last, the world championship. I'm gonna throw a curveball though on you, and this is the one. It's not a WrestleMania. SummerSlam '92. How do you not finish with Bulldog and Brett?
Oh, to the Wembley.
All right, let's start the match and then we'll go into that because
Okay.
that is a curveball.
What timestamp we jumping to?
1 hour,
1:27:13.
27 minutes, 13 seconds.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Hold on.
I'm
just
ready.
A second. My cock doesn't want to take instructions, and
Yeah.
Well, that's called lack of blood flow.
which I believe is also the title of my next sex tape.
I was gonna say it's due to lack.
Hey, I
of
just wanted to say
practice,
something
but,
real
you know.
quick, Frank.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so you know, I pulled. You said that was the best Sheamus match you ever saw, right?
Yeah.
I just want to let you know, I looked at the grades from this from Bleacher Report from 2012. They gave that a C-.
What?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Now, see, if that match had been in the Tokyo Dome, Bleacher Report would have given it an A++++.
Now,
I actually
Brad,
wrote
do
down
you
all
follow
the grades
like
for all
the
the matches.
grading for matches, or did you just look that up for this, or do you like follow the grading for matches?
I actually
It's not
follow
something
Bleacher
I
Report.
really look into.
I follow
That's
Bleacher
cool.
Report. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's
I
real
do.
quick. Let's. Is everybody at the time code?
Yeah, we're
Yep.
there.
All right, let's go. 3, 2, 1, play. Who wrote that fucking article? Because that's
I
Bleacher
don't remember.
Report's not
I knew you were
Meltzer,
going to ask
right?
you that.
Nope.
I can't
I
remember
mean,
who.
because I honestly like, I never liked Meltzer to begin with, and hello AJ Lee. I mean, obviously Bruce and Eric, the fact that they throw so many, he's so wrong in his reporting half the time. Like his grading system is shit to me. That doesn't make any sense.
Like a Sid Vicious match being a 5-star match. You got to be on drugs to think that that's even right.
Come on, really. So let's switch back to SummerSlam '92.
By the way,
what?
Daniel Bryan got Danny Bryan. Sheamus Del Rio got 3 stars from Meltzer. Just
See, he's a fucking moron, that guy.
Well, I mean, it wasn't like a terrible match. He gave the Money in the Bank match before that 4 stars. So
yeah.
What does he give this match?
Do you think he gave it 5 stars? No, of course not. 4.25 stars.
I mean, they go.
Not all of his takes are wrong.
They go 27 minutes 48 seconds here. That's, I mean, again.
Yeah.
So real quick, the match we skipped, Primo and Epico with Rosa Mendez, who officially retired recently, versus the primetime players Darren Young and Titus O'Neil. And Primo and Epico win that contest. So going back to SummerSlam 92 real quick, and I want to hear what everybody has to say on this, but SummerSlam 92 is different to me because of where it was. It was in Davey Boy Smith's hometown. There was 80,000 people there. I thought maybe the placement of the WWF title match was wrong. It should have been the match before. I'm probably contradicting myself a little bit, but I can't look at SummerSlam 92 without it being a Brett Davey finish. I can't.
That's why I was so I was trying to think of what's one that it's hard to argue.
There's probably a few out there. There really is. Like right now, AEW I don't think could afford to do something like that, but the World Wrestling Federation in 1992 could. And I'll go. We've got 2 hands up.
Henry first, then me. Henry had his first.
I have a segue real quick because I'm curious. All show long, I've been focused on this guy in the hard cam wearing a backwards white baseball cap. That's not Efren, is it? Did he tell you where he was?
Let me text him.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I've been holding on to that for an hour. I do have thoughts on what you just said about SummerSlam 92.
Unless Efren had a weird goatee.
Okay, so here's 2 points that I want to make. Because first off, talking about SummerSlam and it being London reinforces my point earlier that I was talking about with Brad. The venue can sometimes impact the card placement. But here's another factor that is very rare for pay-per-views. And someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but SummerSlam 92 was taped, correct? And then aired on pay-per-view later. So here's an interesting argument to think about. Run the Intercontinental title last for the live crowd. When you're putting that show together in post, could you switch them where the title still main events, or is that not?
No,
possible?
Because it was.
I don't know the logistics of it. I really was asking that out of curiosity.
Great question. That is a great question.
Well, think about it, guys. It was daytime when the show started. It was nighttime when it ended. So.
So you would be able to.
We went back in time.
It was. I believe it was twilight during Warrior Savage. So that'd look a little funny, wouldn't it? I mean, honestly, we would have never known. I mean, to probably up to 5 years ago when Bruce said it on or who said it? Was it Bruce that maybe said it on his podcast? I didn't know the fucking thing was taped.
Right.
Yeah,
I thought it was just live and late over there.
Yeah, I was just curious. That was something I wanted to bring up. But that's all I had on SummerSlam 89, right? Or no,
But you make a
92.
good point.
92.
You make a good point about the taping of something and the order of that is shown on a pay-per-view or a show in general. Who knows, right? Because I'm going to this Impact show in a few weeks, and I'm going to tell you what, I went to an MLW show it's about 6 months ago, and nothing was in order. Nothing. I had no idea what was going on. We were just watching matches. So it's not a bad question.
Well, that's
How
actually...
how about like so this is the other thing. What I like about live is you can't edit. For instance, I was at AEW a couple weeks ago. Actually, not this past Wednesday, but the Wednesday before in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And did all of you catch Rampage with the contract signing?
Yes.
Remember the spot where Thunder Rosa and Mercedes Martinez put, I can't remember her name, through a table?
Jamie Hayter.
Jamie
Yep.
Hayter.
Yeah.
That was we thought Jamie was dead because they went to put her through the table and it didn't break. It was just a loud thud and her neck whiplashed back.
Oof.
On TV, you never saw that, right?
I didn't, not to that effect.
No, because they edited it out. Right, and I'm just saying, because I was Tony does his Zoom, he does his live watch along. Brad, are you low key or no?
I'm not. I came in late, so I just stuck with the ad free.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's I mean, the major benefit right now to Tony is he does like personal Zooms with just his low key big hogs. It's really fun. So it's a smaller group, and he so he actually knows who I am. It's crazy to me. Like he knows I'm Frank the Crazy Titans fan. Like
yeah, I've talked to James Elkrai about it, and I was just off on Discord a little bit, and he said the same thing.
It's really the other night.
I'm glad you guys are getting the
beers?
benefit now out of that shit, out of that membership.
Is there a benefit? Is that what you're asking?
No. I'm saying there was a period there where there wasn't much difference between.
Oh, right, and I think he realized that he started losing some patrons, so
yeah,
he started doing this live watch along a Rampage where he shares the screens and he tells us, he reads off his note because he actually helps them edit that show.
Yep.
So he reads off his notes of what his edit points were for them,
and
Justin then we watched right there. Oh, is he?
They're right there.
Oh, sorry, I'm still a few seconds behind.
Oh.
He tells us what the edit points were and if they took his feedback or not. And so, I mean, the fact that Tony Schiavone knows who I am, that's worth the $69 I pay to be a low-key big hot. Go ahead.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
I'm going to ask a question. Do you all know who the World Wrestling Federation title match was at the 92 SummerSlam?
Warrior and Savage.
Let me think.
That should have been a dark match.
It wasn't the best match, no. And then the fact that Ric Flair wasn't even on that show. Hey guys, can you give me another time code, please?
I don't think I'm anywhere near it.
I am at 1:35:09, 10, 11, 12.
Okay. What about
a whole minute ahead of you guys? How is that possible?
That's why.
The
Brad,
internet.
where are you at?
I'm there now.
Okay, because I'm at
Mike,
I was
did you?
3 seconds behind Henry, but it's all good.
I'm good enough. Yeah.
Cole, did you get to give your thoughts on the SummerSlam thing?
Not necessarily. You're asking if Brett Bulldog should have closed it out?
Yeah, yeah. Essentially, because he was kind of expounding on my take of thinking that the WWF title should end the shows.
I mean, that goes back to what I said earlier, right? Like, in my opinion, yes, that should have closed it, right? That storyline was the biggest thing that night, period.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, like, I've solely, I've realized this more and more as I've grown up. Haha. Wrestling, like, what we call professional wrestling is not a sport. It, like, in that sense of the word, or the phrase, it's like, yes, WrestleMania is the Super Bowl, and yes, everybody wants to be the world champion, but really it's a bunch of storylines. You call it soap opera for men. It's a carnival act, right? You put the best thing on last, the thing everybody wants to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where I'm at. Yeah, I mean, I go back to when Big Show was world champion, right? Big Show was one of the first champions that just was the curtain jerk on every Raw.
Remember, he was at Survivor Series and he fought Big Boss Man as his champion. What's up, Henry?
So, SummerSlam 92 wasn't the only time the British Bulldog wrestled in a main event for a championship on a pay-per-view.
There was an In Your House against Brett.
One
Yeah, definitely.
night
No.
only. No, one night only against Sean.
Yeah.
Where they screwed him out of the European title in September of 97.
Yep. Well, then there was so there was also, I think it was October, it was December of 95.
Yep, from the Hershey Arena. It was season in your house. Was it Seasons Beatings? Maybe I honestly think that might.
Oh, it could have been. Yeah, it was.
My point more in pointing that out wasn't that sometimes if it fits the locale that you're in, I can kind of see in my own mind not running the WWE title as your main event match, like. One night only in SummerSlam 92. The British Bulldog is from Great Britain. Having him close out the show, to me at least, feels appropriate. And unlike
he had some star power though too.
And unlike SummerSlam 92, in One Night Only's case, the WWF title match was the semi-main event, which featured the Bret Hart and the Undertaker. I mean, those two aren't slouches either.
God, what was I about to ask? Brad, I wanted to ask you. When was the first time you ever watched wrestling? Did you watch in the 90s eras and the 80s eras?
So I'm a lot older than all of you fellas. I'm 46 years old. So I mean, Hulk Hogan was my hero. That's the reason I started watching. But it really is funnier than that because my dad's. It came on my TV at home at my parents' house. I was probably 6 years old, and my dad said, "Take it off. It's fake." Well, I was in. And here I am 40 years later, and I'm on a Zoom with you guys, right?
Well, I mean, honestly, I mean, you got 5 years on me. I'm 41. A lot of people said to me in growing up, all I ever heard was, "Oh, he'll grow out of that. Oh, he'll grow out of that." I started watching the summer of '88. I was 7. I turned 8 that summer. And here again, like you just said, here I am in a Zoom with you guys. I've got. I mean, if we took a tour of the room I'm in right now, I've got in front of me the SummerSlam 94 poster, the Backlash poster, or the WrestleMania 18 poster. I've got a replica of the Winged Eagle Championship, a replica of the Big Eagle. I've got championships going around. I've got Funko Pops behind me. That's WWE.
Yeah, he's got a shrine dedicated to him not getting laid behind him.
And I can confirm that this exists because I've seen it firsthand.
Yes, he has.
So
you've been in Frank's bedroom?
I have.
Yeah.
I rode with him to Florida when we went to Double or Nothing last year.
We'll talk about this at another time. I don't want to bore Brad.
So this year,
I bought a Lash LaRue picture of Brother Love, and it's on my end table downstairs.
That's the thing. It's like I've completely embraced who I am as a human being. I'm divorced twice. Winner right here. I'm a winner. And coming out of those marriages, I was just like, whoever I'm spend the rest of my life with moving forward, whether it's myself or someone else, is going to have to respect at the very least. They don't have to like it as much as I do. I don't think we'll ever find anybody that does, but they need to at least respect who I am as a human being. And the professional wrestling and the Tennessee Titans are huge in my life. And if you don't respect that, then I can't be around you. So
you're talking about age, and I just want to throw this in there really quick. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Mike.
McClanahan, I'm going to apologize because I'm going to hijack this for a sec. But
Go ahead.
Frank, you just said you want to find a woman that loves professional wrestling, is cool with the Titans, is cool with your Funkos, is cool with this stuff. Brandi Wagner has been in front of your face for over a year, bro. And that's all you want is that? Like...
Now, Brandi knows I love her, but I'm gonna blow her up a little bit here because, she's a Patriot fan.
She goes to Titans games with you, bro.
Right, but then she had a little crush on Mark, and she was rooting for the 49ers at the Titans game. Wearing a Titans jersey. So, it's a little wishy-washy to me. And if she was here, I'd bust her balls about it too. We busted her balls about it in Nashville.
There's so many accounting jokes I could make with this because you're both in accounting, but I'm not going to.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and so do the rest of our listeners.
I'm just that's the other thing about me, to be overly personal. My 2 marriages were so stressful that I'm not in a rush to be in a relationship because I'm pretty happy just doing my own thing. Like we're recording TGT twice this weekend so we can get ahead of not having to record on WrestleMania weekend. Would my wife be okay with that right now if I was spending 3 hours with you guys today and tomorrow? Like, I don't have to answer to anybody right now. And I know marriage isn't necessarily that where you're answering to somebody, but that's the way it felt to me in my 2. So I'm just kind of enjoying myself right now. And I've explained that to Brandi and she understands it. If it was a different time, maybe, but now Frank Bruno's doing himself. That came out wrong. That came out wrong. I knew Cole was going to take that the wrong way.
Hold it. I gotta find it. I am a terrible producer.
Why is Frank?
Where are
Bruno
you when we
doing
need
himself?
you, Phil?
Oh, the 5-knuckle shuffle. Anyway.
So I'm the same way though. I've embraced who I am. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I'm on my 2nd marriage. We've been together since 2012, and she knows I've been this way since because that's what I said. This is where I got into it. This show. So a few months before, whatever I said, you know what I mean? So I am what I am. People at work know what I am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care what anybody thinks. This is what I want.
But Brad, you go through a stage where you do worry about what other people think, right? There's a point in your life where you're like, oh, I hope he likes me. Or I hope
it's over.
Right. I mean, that's for me too. I could give 2 fucks.
I think I'm still in that stage a little bit, but I've slowly gotten out of it. I remember when I first started working, I used to tell my parents, I say, oh my gosh, I just want to go in and I want everybody to like you. Or I want everybody to like me. My dad and mom both looked at me and they said, oh, don't worry. You'll get over that real fast. We promise. But I'm still like that.
You're the least offensive person I think I've ever met in my entire life.
You're such a positive guy.
Yeah,
you really are.
Thank you.
I mean, that's a wonderful quality, Michael. It really is. I mean, but I've also learned in life that you have a right to your opinion, and you have a right.
And I agree with that.
Like after you text me a lot, Michael, and you're like, I hope it was okay that I did that. I'll tell you right now, even on air.
Yeah.
I'd tell you if it wasn't.
I know you would. That's just a habit but I do have to say, honestly, this platform and even ad-free shows and being around all of you has opened me up so much compared to how I used to be, because I used to be very, very quiet. I mean, I would do things for work, like presentations like that, but this has really helped me open up, and it's so nice to have, and it kind of goes back to what you were all saying. You guys are the first, like, wrestling friends that I've had, because I have people that knew I watched it. Like, my family was very supportive. My grandmother, who I talk about a lot, she loved it, so I watched a lot of it with her, and I just am grateful for you guys, because it's nice to have a community of people that you do have a common interest with, and it's really nice, and that's I think what we built. It really is, and I think that's what we built here. And Brad, I know we hope you're enjoying this, because we're having a lot of fun talking.
No, it is fun, and it is nice to have people to talk to. It really is.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you someone that has really come out of their shell since I met them is the guy with the mat behind him.
I could see that. I could see that.
Quiet. He was quiet and would barely say a thing. The first TGT we ever did with him, he barely said 2 words the whole time. Look at him now. He's an integral part of what we do. He puts the format together. He drops the pod version for us. And he's got his own segment. So yes, I'm putting Henry over. Yeah, but well deserved, because
very much so. And I'll say this: Henry has, especially on that podcast, which I highly recommend everybody check out. And Henry, where are some of those additional platforms people can check out the podcast? I know you've put a lot of work into getting it onto some other platforms. So do you want to maybe mention a couple of those?
I feel a bit bashful right now. Not gonna lie. I'm not used to being put on the spot anymore. So recently we've begun an expansion of sorts, which is hard to do sometimes with no money, but we're working on that. We have now submitted our podcast to Amazon Music and iHeartRadio, in addition to it still being found all the other places that you can enjoy your favorite podcasts. I got to say, I think it's a big step forward that we are now part of the Jeff Bezos media empire. And
Great stuff, man.
And
Well,
we're looking
Hot
at
in a girl in a referee outfit, huh?
yeah, she is.
She threw out the
AJ
other referee.
AJ Lee.
Oh, blame her. He wasn't really a looker.
You remember her being this hot?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't remember.
Oh yeah.
Her
Like
being this hot. I like her
Brad,
better now.
AJ Lee was one of my crushes. I had a crush on her since her NXT days when she was on the NXT season.
I'm going to tell you this right now, and this is where the dirty-minded man comes out of me.
Oh God!
When she's got the tight pants on, or she's squatting down and she's counting, I'm like, I wonder what a JJ looks like right now.
Okay. Let's see.
Michael, I'm not editing it. I'm not editing it. I'm not editing it. I'm not.
Here comes Frank Bruno's Me Too segment.
So AJ Lee was on my daughter's birthday cake when she turned 8 years old.
Now I feel gross. I'm sorry.
And where'd he go?
Oh, he just dropped out. Yeah, we're losing guests left and right. We're losing guests left and right.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, I really liked, and I think AJ is one of those people that you didn't see it back then, but her character, or you probably didn't appreciate back then, I should say, her character development was phenomenal. From where she started in NXT to when she finally retired, she's somebody that, believe it or not, with this ROH acquisition and AEW, because she's CM Punk's wife in real life. I'd love to see her maybe play a role in ROH.
Yeah, I would too. Go ahead,
I think she deserves what he does, which is not one last run by any means, but to get involved in wrestling again. If you really, because she just I think had she stayed in wrestling, just think of the integral part of the women's revolution that she could have been, because she was already kind of doing it with Paige, that integral part of women's wrestling. But I just think there's so much more kind of untapped potential there. And I mean that as a compliment in the truest sense. Go ahead, Henry.
I actually have a question for our guest.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad we didn't run him off with that. Anyway, you mentioned a little while ago that when you first started watching wrestling, you were a big fan of Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was your hero. And throughout the night, we've talked about how you've watched WWE, you've watched ECW, you've watched AEW. I have two questions to that. Were you ever into WCW like at all? And if you were, how did you feel when Hogan turned heel?
Oh, I thought it was absolutely great. I thought it was needed. And, I was old enough at the time that I was okay with it. Maybe if I was a younger kid and if I was 10 years old and he was my hero at 6, it would have been different. But as a teenager, actually a little older, it was a great move, and I enjoyed it a lot. I really liked the NWO. I did.
So if you're 5 years older than me, you were 20 when that happened, or 21.
Yeah.
And how old were you, Michael? In
that was and now.
And wait, 1992. Let's see. I was 3 years away from even being born. I wasn't.
No, 1996. You've reminded us you were like 3 months old, or
I was 1 year old in 1996.
Yeah. Fuck
off. I gotta be honest. It feels nice not to be the baby of the group anymore.
Yeah, me and Amy Vaughn are the and Anthony Pyers, I think, are the oldest.
Mark is in there.
Isn't Mark the same age as you? And I know.
Mark Nelson's like 48, I think.
Mark Nelson's like 65 million years old.
And Eddie Prather's a little older too. He's telling me every day.
Yeah,
there's a doctor. I forget, but he lives in the UK or he lives in
Dr.
Ireland.
Steve Gannon. Dr. Steve.
He's
Gannon.
older too.
Okay.
But if you want to know the truth, even though a lot of some of the people on our platform are older, I'd rather hang out with you guys than half the people my age in my hometown. Because that's the cool thing about
we all have something in common.
I was just gonna say that's the coolest thing.
Like I've said that too. It's like I spend more time talking with you guys, working with you guys, texting you guys than I do people. I've had a long conversation about how I had a best friend of 20 years. I don't even fucking talk to him anymore. I can't stand the guy because, like, I found my tribe of people, and I don't care that one's in Indiana, one's in Pennsylvania, one's in Buffalo, one's in Philly. Like, I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter to me. I've driven to Indiana to see Kolb and see TJ, and I would drive to go hang out with Brad. I've made that drive before. I mean, Henry and I drove to fucking Jacksonville together. I would drive to see you, Michael. I don't care. I
can't wait to. That's another thing. I didn't end up going to Top Guy Weekend last year. I can't wait for the event when I actually get to meet all you guys in person. I think that's going to be so much fun.
Well, anybody that's willing to jump on an airplane, I'm hosting a WrestleMania party here, but you're welcome to come.
I'll be honest with you, I would if I could, but my WrestleMania party is going to be me and probably 2 and 3 audit reports while WrestleMania is playing in the background because it's my busy season now till May.
True. What about Revolution? You going to watch that same way?
That one, actually, this weekend I don't have a ton of work to do, so I'm gonna take a break and actually watch that one.
Good.
Brad, what do you do for work?
I've been in the car business for 21 years. So I'm a finance guy. So I'm the guy after you've already agreed to a payment you already don't like, you're going to come into my office and I'm going to try to get you a higher one.
Okay. Are you at a dealership kind of thing?
Yeah. I work for a Nissan dealership.
I'm a big fan of Nissan. When the Tennessee Titans play at Nissan Stadium, you have to be, right? I mean, I drive a Toyota. But
Brad's going to have to teach the tricks of when you go to buy a car at a dealership, how you get out of there without bending over, if you will.
Are there tricks to that? All right. Let me be honest
with you. Brad's frozen right now.
Yeah, he might be. Yeah, it's all good.
That looked like he was moving a little for a second.
Yeah, it's that. See what happens? It's that Philadelphia internet. Well, Michael, you have that problem too. You're in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but
I have. My internet is so hit and miss, and I appreciate you guys working with me on it every week. And it feels like that's the real wrestling match.
Money Mike's actually closer to me than he is to our guest.
I am, because of logistically, I'm so close to the New York border. I'm like, what, Henry, an hour and 15 minutes from you, maybe?
Where I am in my studio right now, yes.
Yeah.
Where I will be probably middle of the month. No, it's a little further than that.
But. Ironically, I've been to both areas where Henry is, though, and I've gone really early in the morning because my family used to doing this sidebar, but we were actually doing them a lot in 2012, so they're actually kind of accurate. We would take one day, your way bus trips from Olean, New York to New York City and back. And it was just a quick way, go up, see a Broadway show, have dinner. One of the places we always stopped, Bath, New York.
I got to be honest, I wanted to save this for the next show when we go into the 2000 Royal Rumble for the second time here on Top Guy Theater. But since you mentioned New York City and you mentioned musicals, did you ever go to Madison Square Garden to see Disney on Ice?
I didn't. I went to Disney on Ice. I went to so I did. I will say this. I went to the first venue I ever saw a wrestling event and was the Giant Center in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and that was back in 2009. Oh my gosh, I can ask me that question tomorrow, Henry, because it's actually the 17-year anniversary to the day of when I went and saw Disney on Ice down at the Giant Center in Hershey, Pennsylvania, because we went to that a lot when I was a kid. So ask me that question.
I will happily do that because that's a story I actually want to hear.
How in the hell did we go from watching wrestling talking about Disney on Ice?
Well, I will happily answer that question with the next show, Frank.
Okay. No, we did go to. I've never been to Madison Square Garden.
I believe that was a 3 count we just talked through. I think we have a champion.
Was it table spot?
I think so, yeah.
And actually, while you're talking about Madison Square Garden, and I'll mention this just because it ties in, that's where Punk won that WWE Championship. The reign that he's currently on right now was Madison Square Garden at the Survivor Series, 2001.
Now, were they married here?
No, they would not get married until 2014, because ironically, when Punk was officially terminated from WWE in 2014, I believe they sent him the termination papers on his wedding day. On his wedding day, yeah. Guys, we're going to move to our final match, which is the Money in the Bank ladder match. And I'm looking at so we're going to go to 2 hours, 19 minutes, 20 seconds. Did you find Brad? He has not come back in. I'm checking my Twitters to see if he says anything. Maybe. I mean, it could be an internet thing, and it's all good. I totally understand. Okay. Oh, yeah. I just want to make sure we didn't scare him off. 2 hours, 19 minutes, 20 seconds. 2 hours, 19 minutes, 20 seconds.
This will actually be the opening bell of the final match of the evening, which is the Money in the Bank ladder match for a contract shot at the WWE title.
And I have a question that'll tie into this, but I actually have to ask that. I'm going to ask this question now, and it'll make more sense on next week's episode because, Henry, don't forget to ask me that question. But anybody's favorite movie, Toy Story 2, like childhood movie? That anybody's favorite movie?
No, but I'll tell you right now that my 2.5-year-old prefers that over Toy Story 1.
Okay, real quick. Is everybody at the time code? Is everybody
I'm
at
there.
the time code?
I'm there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In 3, 2, 1, play.
Well, for the Toy Story follow-up, see next week's episode.
See, everybody's favorite, or Frank Bruno's favorite wrestlers in this match, and I want to take a moment to talk about the Invisible Man, John Cena.
Hang on 1 second.
That was
Brad, how you doing, buddy? You okay?
I don't know what the hell happened, guys. I'm on my phone now. It's all kind of crazy.
We can see you fine. We were afraid we might have scared you off.
I know. I said I'm in the car business, and the whole internet blows up.
Let me give you a time code because we did finish the Punk match.
Okay.
So right now we have started the next match. So we're at 2 hours 20 minutes and 1 second. So maybe by the time you get there, go to 10 seconds.
You got it. Sorry, guys.
No apology. Believe me, this is the show of internet issues. I've had them. We've all had them. It should happen.
I have them every week, Brad. Don't feel bad. I do want to pose a Money in the Bank related question. I want to go back to the start of the concept. It used to be a staple before it was on pay-per-view. It used to be a staple of WrestleMania. And to be honest with you, I kind of miss the Money in the Bank at WrestleMania instead of having its own pay-per-view match concept. I think it had more value at WrestleMania. I thought it was a valuable way to get talent on the card. And I think it kind of segues back into what we were saying earlier, where if it's a match designed for up-and-comers, I don't think you have that pressure to have Money in the Banks with main event stars in them if it's at WrestleMania. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you like the pay-per-view, or do you prefer, or would you like to see it divert back to being at a staple like a WrestleMania?
I like the pay-per-view. I do.
Go ahead, Henry.
I thought I was cutting off Brad. I'm sorry. I think in its WrestleMania form that Money in the Bank took away a little bit from the Royal Rumble match, in that in one 20-minute ladder match, somebody can suddenly get their hands on the very thing we have the Royal Rumble for, which is to determine who's going to face the champion at WrestleMania. Now, to the best of my knowledge, no one has ever cashed in Money in the Bank at WrestleMania.
No.
Yes, yeah, they have.
Rollins.
They have?
Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
Well, I mean from the original form, when they would do the match at WrestleMania until they started doing this pay-per-view. Nobody that ever won the match when it was a WrestleMania-centric match didn't suddenly decide later that night, you know what? I don't want you to be WWE champion. Screw you. Here's my contract. 1, 2, 3. I'm going home the winner. I think that took away a little bit from the Royal Rumble. Doing it like this, where your prize is that for 1 year you have a special contract and a briefcase that you can defend if you want to, just like a title, that gives you a guaranteed shot at one of the major belts, at least at this time when there was still the World Heavyweight and the WWE title. I think, honestly, this makes the concept a little better to me.
Wait, but how is this concept different than what you're saying with the Royal Rumble? Because we still kind of have that where instead of having to outlast 30 men, you get a title shot at any point in just a 20-minute match.
Because I think if go back for a second to the 92 Rumble, they did something that had never happened before and wouldn't happen again until 2016.
Yep.
The WWE title, the biggest prize in the sport now, it wasn't in 1992, but it is arguably the biggest prize in the sport now, because WWE is much bigger than it was then, was on the line. The winner of that match would become the undisputed champion. The next year, in recognition of that goal, because we already had a champion, there was no dispute anymore, the winner of that match got a guaranteed title shot at WrestleMania. And that happened every year until 2016, when I think somebody stopped me if I'm wrong. I'm remembering it being Roman Reigns.
It was. Roman had to defend the
lost
belt
the title to Triple H.
Yep.
In a 40-man Royal Rumble?
No, just 30.
No, that was 2011 in Boston.
See, to me, that's always been the big draw to the Royal Rumble. The winner of that match goes on to WrestleMania. If I can do the same thing at WrestleMania in 20 minutes and do what would otherwise take me 60 and would require me to have that, as Jim Ross calls it, my push, really, what's the point? But doing it in a concept like this, where instead of it being at WrestleMania, it has its own centric event for 1 year from this night. You have the right at any time to challenge for the title whenever you want. Whether, for example, the new champion has just beaten 5 people in the Elimination Chamber, and all of a sudden somebody comes out with their contract briefcase and says, I want a shot at this guy right here, right now. Or you go to start a match with 2 people, and then it turns into a triple threat match because somebody goes to cash in that briefcase. I want in on this. I want that title. To me, I find that a little more interesting.
Yeah,
there's
agree
more
with
stakes to it. To make that part of WrestleMania just seemed like they were throwing things on a wall and trying to see what stuck. And obviously this concept stuck well enough that they turned it into its own pay-per-view. But
yeah, and I like it. I agree with you. I actually really like your point, and thank you for elaborating on what you meant about the variance between.
Thank you.
I apologize. That took a little. I got a little long-winded there.
No, Henry, I loved it. I love the analysis. That to me is one of your favorite analysis that you've had. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Do you know what you get do you know what you get in analysis? Anal. I'm just saying.
And we're not going to get any better than that. Good night, everybody.
Go ahead, Mike. Ask Mike this question. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to watching the match. To pretend I'm not here.
Mike, we can't hear you.
Mike,
the question being Money in the Bank being its own pay-per-view instead of on WrestleMania still?
Yeah.
Yep. What are your thoughts?
I prefer it as a pay-per-view. I do. Its own standalone pay-per-view. I mean, the match was, I won't say too big to be on WrestleMania, but it was big enough that it could have been its own pay-per-view, better than a lot of the other pay-per-views that were out at the time, right? Like, I like it. It gives you another. This is a big event moment, right? It's not going to be Royal Rumble big, but it's up there, right? So I dig it.
And it's kind of like the Elimination Chamber, how that turned into a pay-per-view. The very first time they did that was at Survivor Series, and they built a cage that almost killed Triple H. But the Elimination Chamber, to me, kind of falls into this mold, but at the same time, it doesn't, because Elimination Chamber, Survivor Series, these two things go well hand in hand together. At least I think so. If they were to get rid of the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view as a concept and just go back to doing it at Survivor Series, I can't say that would disappoint me any.
I agree. I have actually another thought. And Brad, were you watching wrestling during the Attitude Era?
Yeah,
The 90s?
yeah, most definitely.
Okay, then I want to have you start this question. I think it'll be interesting because all of you guys were. I wasn't. Let's say the Money in the
you
Bank.
were only 2 years old.
Yeah, I was watching Blues Clues. That was my entertainment. We know you need an adult.
No, that wasn't for me. That was for you.
Oh God. Can Charlotte Flair be my adult?
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Okay,
Sweet.
well, my question, and it's a serious one, for all of you that were around the Attitude Era, who could have been, let's say this Money in the Bank concept was around in the Attitude Era. Who are some breakthrough stars, maybe people that never had a world title run, or it could have been another way to launch them? Who would have been good candidates to win Money in the Bank in the Attitude Era?
I want to clarify your question real quick. Are you talking about just in WWE, or like say
about the same thing?
Like I'm legitimately trying to think of somebody who hasn't been a world champion at all.
I'd say
anywhere.
just WWE. You got if it's a WWE concept, look at who was in the World Wrestling Federation at the Attitude Era.
Yep, yeah. Let's restrict it to World Wrestling Federation to start.
I got one right now.
Yeah.
D'Lo
Okay, go ahead.
Brown or Val Venus.
What about K-Quick, Ron Killings?
I'm sorry, his name was K-Quick. Okay. K-Quick ain't getting over. He gets over now. K-Quick wasn't getting over. He was with Brian James, for Christ's sakes, or Jesse James, or whatever his name was.
I got to be a shill for him, but I think Owen Hart is a shoe-in for Monday Night.
Oh no, Mike, that's a good one. No, you're absolutely
That
right.
I never
Owen.
thought that, but that would be fantastic.
What about Dean Malenko?
Yeah.
Oh no, that would have been a good one. I mean,
But I'm
think
breaking
about
all
it,
the
too.
rules. I'm breaking all the rules. I'm bringing Billy Kidman over.
Okay, break the rules. It's
I mean,
fine.
technically, he
yeah.
was part of the
You
Attitude
make the
Era because that
rules.
didn't end until 2002, and he showed up after WCW closed in 2001.
Yeah,
There you go.
I'm okay with that. That's cool. But I like the Owen Hart. I think he would have been. And imagine if they had it say in '94 and he wins it and cashes in on Brett.
Oh, so good.
See, the only problem with that is that in 1994, they set what at the time was the gold standard for ladder matches in that match at WrestleMania 10 with the Heartbreak Kid and Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental title.
See, I put this motherfucker over earlier, and he's making fun of me now.
I am not making fun of you. I am making fun of Shawn Michaels.
I love him. What do you
that was my best Shawn Michaels impersonation. What do you want from me? The ladder match, as a revived concept, the ladder match, I don't think would come back until the Dudley Boys jumped ship the WWF from ECW and they started doing it with the Hardy Boys? My timeline could be off on that.
No, they had one. They had one. I remember the one that's a standout to me after Mania 10 is they had a ladder match at what's the Intercontinental title? Rock, Triple H, SummerSlam.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's SummerSlam '98.
That's one of the ones that stands out.
They did a ladder match when Shawn was Intercontinental title with SummerSlam '95. They did a ladder match with Shawn and Razor.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes.
But yeah, I'm trying to think. Like they didn't do a ton of it in like 96, 97. The one that sticks out to me again would be with the Rock Triple H one.
That was the one I thought of immediately. And then they did more in '99 because remember they had they did do a briefcase ladder match because remember King of the Ring, the handicap one with Austin versus both McMahons for control, and they had the guy controlling the briefcase.
Yeah,
it was me, Austin. It was me all along.
It's a swerve, bro.
You know what's funny though? You look at the Attitude Era. You could have introduced the concept there and had the same person start it. You could have had Edge win it if it was later Attitude Era.
And of course, young Jericho.
Yep, Jericho. Yep,
Ooh,
Jericho.
Which was his idea, so that's what makes it even
As
more
silly as
interesting.
it sounds, because it's hard to picture him in a ladder match. What about Jeff Jarrett?
Sure,
I could see that. I actually could see that.
Here's
also
a
see
good one.
Billy Gunn.
China.
Maybe. I could.
Why are you shaking your head, Mike?
She'd be in it, but she wouldn't win it. Of course, she'd be in it. Just like Ahmed Johnson would be in it.
The best promo ever.
You know what though? I could.
You know what? While we're at it, why don't we just invite Vince Russo to be part of the match too?
By the way, Brad, what's your take on Vince Russo?
I thought he was great for the business when it was the Attitude Era. You know, I kind of wish he would stop talking now. But
yeah,
he did a great job, and it was for the time.
Yeah, him and Jim Cornette seem just overly bitter to me. Jim Cornette's just a lot more funnier about it.
Henry, go ahead.
A minute ago, they showed Big Show throwing a ladder out of the ring into a pile of ladders. I'm kind of curious if he understands this whole concept. You got to climb up the ladder to get the briefcase to win the match.
But I think you know what? He's going to have a custom ladder, I think.
Yes, he does.
He's too big to use a regular
It's happening right now. It's happening right now.
It's just that look looks strange for a second. You know you got to climb up the ladder, right, big boy? You can't just throw them all out of the ring and be like, I'm the winner.
That looks like two ladders put together, does it not?
It does.
It's a heavy duty ladder.
Jesus
This
Christ.
is the kind of ladder.
Is that a real thing, by the way?
Ladder match.
Yeah.
Like clearly I don't shop at Home Depot or Lowe's, and I don't do my own home improvement. The only thing I do is boob improvement when I eat my Cadbury cream eggs. So, is a heavy duty ladder a real thing?
Yeah,
I would say so.
When you eat them or when you roll over on them?
Oh no, they have to get into my body to make my breasts bigger.
Frank, I got a question
they're
about
on the outside to make them gooier.
Go ahead.
My bad.
The Cadbury eggs. Did you think the first time when you heard about them there was real egg in there? Because I did.
No, I'm not gonna. So let me tell you how dumb I was as a kid. Yes, I thought it was like, oh, chocolate egg, but I didn't think it was like raw egg. I legit thought it was like there's just like a hard boiled egg in there, but it was surrounded by chocolate.
I didn't eat it till I was an adult because I had no idea. I really thought there was an egg in there until I was
Oh,
probably
you know, I took
14.
a hunk of bite. I took a bite out of it. Yeah. And then the other thing is my mother was trying to get me to eat more fish because I hate fish.
I
So
do too.
so you know how it says chicken of the sea on bumblebee tuna?
Yeah.
I leave that. And
The
to this day,
sticks, they were out there going blub 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 blub.
Welcome to the barnyard edition.
I'm not kidding you. I thought it was chicken, and I to this day I still eat tuna. It's the only fish I eat.
Tuna's different. Tuna out of a can's different.
My favorite fish, as long as we're on the subject, my favorite fish is like a haddock because that's what's very common in this area. But I can't eat like shellfish because I have a shellfish allergy.
Yeah, you're.
So is it like close your throat allergy?
I have a shellfish allergy.
No, but like a close your throat allergy.
I believe I'll be honest with you, I've never tried it. I just know I have the allergy.
So Michael, if you go to a hibachi restaurant and they want to get they want fish on there, and you're sharing a table with somebody else, you got to say, I got to make mine separate before that goes on, right?
No, it's not that bad. I just can't eat it.
Because I've been at that restaurant when that happens.
No, and some people have really bad allergies. Mine's just, I just can't eat it.
Yeah. Okay. So, wait, Brad, you've been at a restaurant where someone went into anaphylactic shock?
No, I've been in a restaurant where someone said they actually had the allergy, so they cook everything else, then they cook the fish.
Yeah, so I used to work for a restaurant group, and that was a huge thing because they served mostly like sushi and fish and stuff like that. So yeah, if the minute they told us that they had an allergy, there was a whole different station that the cooks went to do the thing.
Definitely changes things up for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, definitely.
Guy in the audience holding up a sign that says "My cat was in ECW."
Yeah, I saw that.
I have no idea what that means.
That's the one thing I miss about, like, say, Adage Air, because even though I didn't watch it live, I used to rewatch it, was the signs and, like, having the signs in the crowd. And, this 2012 is kind of an interesting time where it's when WWE started to really get behind Twitter and YouTube and started to focus on, hashtag this. And it was the invention of that. And I almost think you could say social media replaced taking signs to events. And I was wondering, we're looking at Money in the Bank here. What are your thoughts on kind of the evolution of these concepts and these gimmick pay-per-views? Because it kind of goes back to what Henry was saying. I was not a big fan of, I don't mind Money in the Bank as its own pay-per-view, but like when you have a tables, ladders, chairs pay-per-view, and Brad, I've asked this question to a few guests. What are your thoughts on that versus years ago when it used to be like No Mercy or Cyber Sunday, and it wasn't always built around a specific match type? Because to me, when you build it around a match type, you kind of pigeonhole yourself.
Didn't we have a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view like within the last couple of years that didn't have a Hell in a Cell on the pay-per-view?
I don't think
so.
No, it might have been the last couple of years where the match ended by disqualification.
Yeah, that was bad.
Worst.
There's been a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view where there was only one Hell in a Cell and the rest of it was all regular matches. Because I remember Hell in a Cell used to have like 2 or 3 on them.
Here's what I don't get. In 1998, Mick Foley almost died, not once, but twice in the same Hell in a Cell match. And when Seth Rollins breaks out the sledgehammer to go against the invulnerable, formidable Fiend, the ref rings the bell and ends the match, and it ends in a disqualification.
Very weird ending.
Here's what I couldn't tell, though. Why would you make it a disqualification? You could have still ended the match, but couldn't you make it a no contest?
Because the idea of a Hell in a Cell match is that it's supposed to be no disqualification.
But believe it or not, I think we're all forgetting it happened the year before something similar, because if you remember, Brock Lesnar, who would win Money in the Bank later on, ladies and gentlemen, that's another reason he's relevant here, is he will win Money in the Bank in 2019. But before that, he breaks up the Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman match the year before this Fiend instance in 2018. Brock just kicks the door off the cell, goes in and F5 both of them, and the pay-per-view goes off the air.
Yeah, they've tried to come up with some creative stuff. I guess that's what's called a dusty finish, right?
Yeah. Most definitely.
But here's another question, if you don't mind, and I'll start with you, Brad, again, because you're our guest. We have, you have all these concepts, and my thing is, do you think you need them to be annual concepts? Or should they almost be on a rotation where, like, okay, 1 year we're going to do Hell in a Cell, and then we're not going to do it again the next year, and maybe that year we'll have Money in the Bank, where they don't have to be necessarily annual concepts. They could be semi-annual. I, for one, would like to see King of the Ring come back, and maybe 1 year you do Money in the Bank, the next year replace with King of the Ring. Just kind of get your thoughts on these concepts, and if you think having them annual is a good idea, or if in some ways it detracts from what used to make them special.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you're right. I think you don't have to do them as often, and mix it up. Mix it up. I agree. I never thought of that before, but that's a really good idea, because what seems to happen is they just end it normally. They just end it, and then it's just nothing. And then, like King of the Ring, how long was that gone? And then they bring it back. But maybe if you like rotate it and stop having it like oversaturated, it would work better.
Did anyone else see the end of the match just now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think Cena wasn't intended to win this match, and all of a sudden he just did because the handle in the briefcase broke and he's holding on to it?
I like that he keeps hitting him with it.
I honestly think the spot was
I think that was the planned finish.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be a handle here. I screw it. Who cares? I won.
Then he hits him over the head.
And the thing bends. So this is typically where we put a bow on things, guys. And I'd like to go around the room and just see what everyone thought of this particular edition of Money in the Bank 2012. Brad, we will start with you.
I really loved the first match. I loved the Sheamus and Del Rio match, and of course the Daniel Bryan and CM Punk match, which it's just crazy to me that those were the second and fourth on the card. And I liked the end match. I thought it was obvious, but I think overall it was a really great pay-per-view.
Mike, how about you?
Fantastic pay-per-view, fantastic guest, Brad. Again, thank you for being on, and thank you for picking a modern era pay-per-view that I actually watched live, because this did bring back a lot of good memories for me. This was during that time when I would watch with my grandmother, and she loved to watch all these, so brought back some nice memories of that. And just a really great conversation about a very unique and innovative concept. As always, I love doing this. Thank you, everybody who's watching, for all your support. We appreciate it. And again, just a fun night tonight. We definitely made dollars and cents out of Money in the Bank.
Cole, how about you?
I enjoyed it. It's funny because this was right around the time frame when I stopped watching every single week constantly. I DVR'd it, would fast forward it, but this was right around that time period for me, right? So it just brings back some feels there. Overall, to Brad's point, I think the opening match was probably the best match of the night, I think, at least for me. I definitely dug it. Thanks for letting me be a part of the ride tonight, guys.
Henry?
I'm watching the end of the pay-per-view, and John Cena just picked up the handles from the briefcases and stuck them in his pocket. And it was just it's strange, but it's at the same time it fits. I think this was an excellent pay-per-view, and
yeah.
This is stuff that usually I'm seeing for the first time when we do it this new, because I fell out for so long. And honestly, I would recommend going back and rewatching the whole thing, not just what we've watched tonight. I think the entire card has its good spots and its bad, but we try to limit this to about 2 hours, and unfortunately you can't watch a 3-hour show in 2 hours and cover everything. So, but all in all, I think this was a good show.
Absolutely, I agree. My take too is, just so everyone knows, the matches that we did skip, again, we talked about Primo in the Epico match, but also we skipped Ryback versus Kurt Hawkins and Tyler Rex in a handicap match. Ryback goes over. And then Caitlin, Layla, and Tamina Snuka versus Beth Phoenix, Eve Torres, and Natalia. And I believe that Caitlin and Layla and Tamina go over in that one. I could be wrong.
No, you're right.
This one doesn't say defeated. What I have says versus, but usually the person that won is listed first. This was actually a really fun show to go back and watch. I do like the Money in the Bank concept a lot. It's fun. I went to Money in the Bank 2014 and it was a great show. There was a lot of hype around the two ladder matches. Just it's just fun and exciting. It's fun to see live. So Brad, just thank you for being here. Again, we say this all the time, and I do mean it, that we'd love to have you again, watch another show, and just continue to get to know you. I feel like, TGT and all of us have another friend, and I hope that, we all stay in contact, and we'll see you on the Zooms again. And as long as the Eagles aren't beating the Titans down, I will we'll be good. So I mean, in fact, Tennessee and the Eagles play this year again in Philly, but I'm not going to go this time because I may get killed, because Tennessee's actually a good team. Or they used to be. Who the fuck knows? But on that note, we're gonna roll our outro because clearly I'm rambling and getting tired. So I just want to thank everyone again for being here. Next week we've got Matt M watching Royal Rumble 2000. Another top guy we're gonna get to know.
Frank, before you roll the outro, I did want to say something about next week's show. We are going to debut a concept with next week's show. I don't know if it'll stick. I don't know if this is just going to be a one-time thing. Royal Rumble 2000 we've covered before. It's in our old Top Guy Theater archives from back when our friend TJ Stevens was still the showrunner. I highly recommend that episode in its entirety. It is a good watch. What we are going to do next week is we are going to take that episode and we are going to cover it TGT style, except we're not calling next week's episode Top Guy Theater. Well, we are, because we don't have graphics or anything for it yet, because this was just kind of a run-of-the-mill idea that we're going to try to run with and see if it works. We are calling next week's show Top Guy Classics. We are taking a show that we've already done, and we are running it through the machine with this new style format. Mm-hmm. And I got to be honest, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm kind of excited for next week's show to see what we can do with it.
Well, stay tuned. Everyone's going to have to do that. There's the hook. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
14 WrestleManias.
A leg drop, an elbow smash, a body slam.
Are you ready to fight?
Who will survive?
Did it not play?
What did you do?
It didn't play. It just said your browser failed it. So I'll try it again, and I'll just cut this piece. Hold on.
14 WrestleManias.
A leg drop, an elbow smash, a body slam.
Are you ready to fight?
Who will survive?